A single night. A fleeting promise. And the moment I realized some goodbyes are permanent, the first time she smiled at me, it wasn't in a flirtatious way or an overplayed gesture, it was quiet, understated, but somehow it lingered longer than the moment itself. I was 22, fumbling through my own life, trying to seem older, wiser, more composed than I really was. She was 40, gracefully carrying a life behind her eyes that I could only guess at. Black hair cascaded over her shoulders in soft waves, catching the golden morning light that spilled through the coffee shop windows. There was a quiet elegance in her posture, the way her curves moved subtly as she shifted in her seat, the faint laugh lines around her eyes that hinted at decades of stories, of joys and sorrows alike. I couldn't help but notice the contrast, her composed, confident presence and my nervous, jittery energy. Our hands brushed as I handed her the book she had been waiting for, just a flick, a whisper of touch that sent a warmth straight up my arm. She didn't pull away, didn't shy from it, she let the moment exist as if she knew the subtle gravity of it. Her dark brown eyes met mine, and I felt the world compress to just the two of us. There was an instant connection, though unspoken. She spoke with a calm certainty, her voice soft but firm, each word deliberate, echoing an air of experience that both intimidated and fascinated me. I laughed nervously at a joke she made, heart racing at the way her eyes sparkled, the faint tilt of her head acknowledging my presence. Something in the way she listened made me feel seen, not just noticed, but truly observed. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a pull towards someone that had nothing to do with obligation or expectation. There was a subtle warmth in the air between us, a quiet tension in every pause, every glance, every smile exchanged. She didn't reach across the table to hold my hand, but the space between us vibrated with the possibility of connection. I walked away that day feeling a strange mix of exhilaration and fear. The kind of fear that comes not from danger, but from knowing that someone could affect you so completely in a single encounter. Somewhere inside me, a quiet hope began to flicker, but I didn't know if it was hers to meet, or mine to hold onto. And just like that, the stage was set. Something small, a casual coffee, had already begun to ripple into something I couldn't yet name, a tension between what I wanted and what I might lose. After that first coffee, our encounters became more frequent, though still casual on the surface. I found excuses to be around her, lingering near her in ways I told myself were innocent. There was a soft thrill in sharing these small moments, the way her fingers lightly brushed mine when handing over a notebook, the warmth in her eyes when she laughed at something I said, or the gentle tilt of her head as if she were waiting for me to speak my mind. We would meet in sunlit parks, where golden morning rays spilled through the leaves, dappling the benches where we sat. She wore casual dresses or flowing blouses that matched the season, her black hair always perfectly catching the light. I noticed every detail, how her eyes crinkled slightly when she smiled, the subtle scent of her perfume as she passed by, the way she moved with confidence yet a quiet vulnerability that made me ache to understand her fully. Though she called it casual, I could feel an unspoken intimacy growing. Every laugh, every shared glance, carried weight. I was 22, naive in many ways, yet aware that I was stepping into a world I wasn't prepared to navigate. The age gap wasn't just numbers, it was life experience, unspoken histories, and quiet wisdom she carried effortlessly. And with every interaction, I wanted more, though I tried to convince myself it was okay to stay in the boundaries she set. One evening, our walk stretched longer than usual. Sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, casting a warm glow over her face. She talked about her life in a way that made me feel included yet still slightly out of reach, stories of past love, triumphs, and regrets hinted at a depth I longed to touch but couldn't fully grasp. Our hands brushed often, sometimes lingering, and I noticed her body leaning subtly toward mine when we laughed. I felt an ache in my chest, a mix of longing and fear, because I knew that a line existed that neither of us had openly acknowledged. Even in silence, the tension between us was palpable. Her presence was intoxicating. I could feel the warmth of her skin when she gestured near me, smell the faint scent of her perfume, and see the subtle play of light on her hair. These sensory details pulled me in, creating a connection that was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. The turning point came unexpectedly. We found ourselves alone at a lakeside park, the sun glinting off the water. The quiet serenity amplified every touch, every glance. She shared a vulnerable part of her life, something she had never spoken about before. I felt honored and frightened, honored because she trusted me, frightened because I realized my feelings were deeper than I could control. We stood near the railing, the breeze ruffling her long black hair. I noticed the soft curve of her smile, the gentle tilt of her head, and the subtle tension in her body when our hands nearly touched. It was a moment suspended between words unspoken and emotions barely restrained. The age gap, the casual label, it all became irrelevant in that quiet intimacy. I wanted to reach for her, to close the gap between desire and restraint, but I hesitated, aware of the consequences of acting too soon. Tension grew in small, subtle ways: shared benches under tree canopies, lingering glances at cafes, and brushes of hands that lingered slightly too long. She maintained a poised, graceful demeanor, yet there were moments when vulnerability peeked through her calm facade. I struggled with my own hesitation, afraid of misreading signals, yet unable to deny the pull between us. Every interaction was charged with unspoken questions and tentative answers. The sunlit streets and cafes became arenas of quiet longing, where emotions surged beneath the surface, restrained by social expectations and self-doubt. Even as we laughed and joked, I felt the bittersweet weight of knowing that my heart was moving faster than our circumstances allowed. One afternoon, we walked through the city, sunlight reflecting off windows and casting bright patterns on the pavement. Our conversations drifted from trivial topics to deeply personal revelations. She shared fears and hopes, and I opened up in ways I had never allowed myself. Her hand brushed mine briefly as we passed a shop, and the contact lingered longer than expected. Every small gesture, every subtle touch, was a conversation in itself. I wanted to reach out and hold her hand, to let her know the depth of my feelings, but restraint dominated the moment. It became painfully clear that what we shared was no longer casual. The emotional intimacy had outgrown the label she had given it, and I feared that the truth, once revealed, might shatter what little control we had left over our connection. The story culminates on a sunlit rooftop garden. We stand together, the city sprawled behind us, a gentle breeze lifting strands of her black hair. Our hands hover near each other, almost touching. There's a moment of shared understanding, desire, connection, and inevitable heartache all mingled together. She calls it casual. I can't. I see a lifetime of potential in her eyes, and I realize that one night, one choice, could change everything. Her gentle smile, her graceful posture, and the quiet steadiness of her presence anchor me, but I know that some goodbyes can't be undone. The tension between what is and what could be hangs in the air, bright sunlight illuminating a truth we are both forced to face.